Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, December 14th Planning Board meeting. We're doing this via Zoom at 6 p.m. I'm going to start with board business. Number one, update from the Assistant Town Planner's job description. So where's Mara? There you are.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Mark. And I am going to say that I will be looking for LCTV's help in promoting some of the presenters later in the evening. Let's see. So Assistant Town Planner job description. There are a few more minor changes to make to that job description. Then it'll go back to the HR department, at which point they'll schedule a meeting with the Personnel Advisory Committee to grade that description. The next step after that is to send it back to the select board to accept the grading and to get it posted. So we're hoping for posting. We were hoping for posting in January. Hopefully we can still make that timeline.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or updates of their own on that subject? We're good. Just wait till the posting comes out. Okay. Next board business, MBTA commuter work. I asked Maren to put this on because I don't think it's reasonable to expect the owners of the land that is down there at the train station to wait another year to have something that we were just about ready to bring to town meeting a year and a half ago. I wanted to see how the board felt. I think we kind of all know what's going on down there and what we're trying to push down there. And my thought was to maybe get involved with the consultant on a more personal basis and start getting some drawings and renditions from where we left off to try to get this for spring town meeting. I think trying to get it on fall town meeting is just, like I said, they've been waiting and they've been working with the town for over 2 years on this. So I just thought the time frame when they presented it to us just wasn't right. I just wanted to hear what the rest of the board had to say about that. So I'll open it up for discussion. Do you want to try to do it fast to try to get on spring town meeting with it, or what your thoughts are on it? So I think I'll go around the room and ask. I'll start with you, Jeff. How's that? Oh, you got to unmute. Jeff, you're muted.
So we have done a lot of work on it. I think we were a little stumbling. I mean, the main issue is numbers type. Things have changed since we, with the prospective community thing. It works into what we're going to be able to do with 550 King related to this property. I'm sort of with you if we can actually get those issues resolved, but I would also point out we're going to go to town meeting with 410 Great Road. It's a lot.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, we're trying to get all of that stuff done in the gun bylaw as a special town meeting.
Okay.
Sometime in February, and we're looking for, May town meeting. We still have a fair amount of time to do it. And Delisa, correct me if I'm wrong, we were just about there. The only difference that's going to change now is the mix. Whether, I think when we first were looking at all of this, we didn't have multifamilies going on in the common. We now have apartments there. I think we meet with the consultant and we talk about what's the mix going to be, what's the most sensitive way to go about everybody on Foster Street that has a concern. So maybe we'll look at more, as they presented to us too, and they talked about it, more duplexes, quads, things like that, rather than the big high-rise buildings that were, that have already been approved in the town. When we were first going through this, we didn't have that.
I would also question the retail.
Yeah, I agree with you too. The amount of retail that was originally proposed might be too much, but that's why we bring them in and we say, well, this is where we think the town is looking now, rather than doing it in a vacuum. We now have other pieces of the puzzle that have already been solved. It's time to put the last pieces on this and see what the voters in the town of Luton think about it. But I think waiting till September or October to find out is just, like I said, we've already been postponing this for 2 years.
I would agree with you, Mark. I think, we did so much due diligence. We also, if you recall, spent a lot of time looking at, all right, what are the challenges we're facing? How do we overcome those? And I think it's a matter of just going back and looking at our meeting notes and then figuring out how to frame it, appropriately, and also work in what the state is now requiring. So I have no problem with presenting it at spring. I think we're going to have to spend some more time really getting getting everything put together and before we present it. But I think all the basic work has been done.
So you don't have a problem with speeding the process up to try to get it ready for the springtime. That's the better way to put it.
I
How about
don't.
you, Bartlett? What do you think? You're muted, Bartlett.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'd have to agree with both of you. I haven't been involved very much in that project, but I think that if you guys want to go ahead and bring it to Springtown meeting, I think that's okay.
Okay. Anna, what do you think?
Well, I think it depends. The big question is you're talking about, this isn't fair to the current landowner that we're talking about here, the Longs. And so are you saying that we would only focus on that particular property, or are we going to be opening it up to the entire space that was discussed the last time?
I think we're going to open up to the entire space, which is what we're talking about, but we're still talking about a number and redevelopment there. And everybody, the Longs have probably been the primary focus on this, but we are talking about the whole area in general. But I just don't think it's right to, like as Delisa said, we were just about there. We're all set to go to town meeting, and now to wait another year almost to do this, where most of the work is done.
And Mark, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think too, we've got to remember that this is just a zoning change. We're not looking at specific plans or anything like that. It's just zoning.
Right.
So it just opens up possibilities.
I guess I was gonna, pick up on what Anna said. I agree. It's a zoning thing. It's not a specific project proposal. Of course, the zoning has to be able to allow, what we want doing there, but it's not an approval of a specific project.
No, absolutely not. It's the whole area. It's whatever area we choose to restrict it to, how far away from the train station we go.
So could the consultants condense their plan then?
Myron, I'm sure if we ask them to come in and start having regular meetings with them, I think we can.
Yeah, I had Mark, after you asked me earlier if that was possible, I asked the consultants what they thought of a condensed timeline. They said they could probably finish up by May or June, but that means having the draft done and vetted by May or June. I don't, in order to make a May town meeting, we have to have the draft done and vetted by March.
Okay.
Well, do you think we can light a fire under them? I mean, especially given the amount of work we've done and our willingness.
Mm-hmm. You can certainly ask. Right now, we have a contract with the state that was for a two-year grant, a grant to do this work over 2 years. We have a contract. The town has a contract with our consultants, and the timeline for that has the work completed by this upcoming fall town meeting. So we would have to amend the contract with the consultant, and we'd have to likely amend the contract with the state. I don't believe either is a difficult problem to overcome. It's just another couple processes to go through.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we invite them in January and have where we ended? Let's have the set of plans where we ended, where we were at. Bring them in and see. Let's all talk about what we think is going to be a viable process to move forward for town meeting. Talk to them, vet it out with them, and then get a timeline and a schedule from them if they think we can have a deliverable product for a May town meeting. and just start in January and see what they have them in and see what they say. Doesn't that make the most sense? You know, we have the plan. We have where we ended it, where we were all set to go to town meeting. Let's start there and put our red pencils to it and tell them what we think is going to pass. I think we kind of all know what, not because of the way the nature of the town has changed as to what we already do have. That doesn't, you know, we're not gonna. So I think if we give them our input as to what we think is viable and will potentially pass town meeting, let's go from there and see what they say.
So we're talking about bringing them in January 12th then? That's our next meeting?
I think so.
January 5th.
Or it's January,
January 5th.
wait, that's. Oh, yeah, January 5th. Okay.
Yeah, let's bring them in January 5th, lay out what we've already, where we stopped and where we think we should be heading forward and see what they think. So let's just bring them in and see how that goes. Okay, when do we plan on doing that? Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, on to Weber Village Affordable Unit Lottery.
Yes, the lottery agent has opened up the lottery process for the 2 affordable units at Weber. She provided the electronic copies and hard copies of the application form and the flyer announcement, and the flyer was posted, both were posted with a link on the front page of the town website. So those are available lotteries. Applications are due January 28th. And include a lot. Anybody interested should just go to the website or contact EHS, Elder and Human Services, for that information.
Okay.
I was impressed with, you know, the price and the product. And I mean, I wasn't involved in permitting that project, and I know we had a lot of trouble getting to the point where we had these affordable units, but they're here. They're going to be a great thing for, you know, 2 families.
I agree.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there a reason why the air commuter station was offered up in the material and not the Littleton commuter rail station? Just curious if you know why that happened, Mara.
I haven't had the opportunity to read the information.
Well, if you have an opportunity, it does indicate that the location is between Air and Littleton, and they pointed out the Air commuter station, but didn't list the Littleton one. And also it talked about the local cities would be listed for preference, but there weren't any cities listed there. So the wording just makes it sound a little bit like Air folks could potentially get a local preference too. And I just wanted to confirm with you, who are the local preference communities that this would be viable for?
Yeah, we can reach out to the lottery agent with those questions.
Okay, that would be really great, because I just want to make sure that if it's only supposed to be Littleton, that then it should really be in writing, so there is no confusion.
Well, there was, yeah, there's no confusion in the planning board's decision, special permit decision on it. So I will.
Thank you.
Forward your questions on to the lottery agent.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Did anyone have a chance to look at the minutes for October 25th, November 10th? Anyone have any problems with them?
Nope.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October 25th and November 10th as presented.
Hold on real quick. There was just one thing on 10/25 at the end of number 1, the date is incorrect. It should be September 10th, I think. Because it says, the board agreed to keep the current proposed hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and have a discussion on the hours at the public meeting on November 10th. And
that was in.
well, I'm sorry. It's on page 3. It says Montanari moved to hold a public hearing on September 10th at 7:30 p.m. And so I was just curious whether or not that was the correct date.
Then you believe the correct date is November 10th?
I think so, yeah, because
Okay.
meeting notes are October 25th, yeah.
Mhm. Yep,
So that's it.
yep, happy to make that correction.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? And, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Anyone want to second
I
that?
so move.
Oh, so second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Bills. Do we have any other bills, Maren? I did DocuSign a few bills this afternoon just because we had to get them done, I guess.
Yep, I'm happy to spend whatever time the board needs, going through the bills. I'll first highlight that there will be one more bill going through on DocuSign, bill that came in today from Green International for inspections, construction inspections for Croft Common. The amount is $1,320. I'll do that on if the board approves that, we'll do that on a separate DocuSign that Lucia can send out tomorrow.
So I signed it, just so that they know, I signed the DocuSign, the release of the last of the funds that was left over for the K development property. They had $5,900 left in their escrow account, so I signed to send that back to the developer that he asked for it. And I think what else did I sign? Did I sign something else too?
Well, there would have been 3 packages they're going through to all the board members. That first one that you mentioned is the K refund, the remaining inspection account. Actually, the board already voted to approve that. We also need board signatures for the
So I signed
internal
it.
billing process. The next packet of bills will be a reimbursement to myself for membership dues and membership, and trip to Pittsfield for accepting the Mass Works grant. A bill from Innis Associates, and that total amount $722.36. A bill from Innis Associates for their work in November under the EEA Planning Assistance Grant for the MBTA Communities work.
So I haven't done those yet. I just did the other one, right?
Yep, I would suggest that we do need a board vote on the Green International bill, the my reimbursement and the Associates bill. And then there's one more set of reimbursements for CPTC training, $50 to Cheryl Gould and $25 to Bartlett Harvey. For their,
Okay. Does the board have any problem with any of these bills?
So I have a question. Why are we signing something from ZBA?
it's the planning department has the training funds for board members, planning board and ZBA board members.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I should also take the opportunity to highlight that if enough sitting board members, planning board and ZBA board members get trained, then the town does get a discount on our liability insurance. So CPTC does work directly with the insurance company on that. So they track who takes, how many people from each community take training courses.
Okay, so again, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills as presented. Someone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, I'll do roll call for this one. Anna,
Yes.
Delisa,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, last but not least, and I skipped over it, board member update. Anybody have anything you want to share with us or talk about? Or?
I want to just say I took a tour of the new Groton Hill Music Center yesterday. It is unbelievable. It's an architectural landmark. It's an incredible facility with multiple music venues. It's a state-of-the-art educational facility. I think people should at the least go to their website and see if there's anything you want to see there. But if they can hook into a tour, I would do that too. It's pretty amazing.
I've heard that. I've heard that it's
And I talked with someone who knows that they spent $210 million.
That's what I heard. I heard it was over 200 million. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
So is the town thinking about buying the old facility?
oh, we can't talk about that, Lisa.
I saw something on the board of select, select board.
I can't even imagine them going from that facility, which I thought was fine, to
Yeah.
what they have now. It's amazing.
So the rumor has it is the gun bylaw, if we can get it done and approved, and the purchase of Indian Hill will be on a special town meeting. So if we can get everything done, okay? So that's what I've heard through the grapevine, okay? Now you know as much as I know. Any other board business? Bartlett, you've got anything?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Good. Anna, I see your hand up.
So I just had a quick question. Maren, you sent us an email last week about future budget requests. Was that just informational, or do we have to take some kind of action as a board?
Future budget requests.
It was capital plan, referred to capital planning.
Yep. I mean, historically, planning department has just submitted the capital request. I'm happy to take input or vote from the planning board for that. I defer to the board on that.
We've ever voted a budget before, but the board wants to. It's entirely up to everybody else. Doesn't the finance committee and the selectmen kind of tell us what we have to spend and let us spend what we have to spend? That's about it. We're always begging for more money anyway.
Over time, I've learned that if we don't ask and don't remember to put things on the capital improvement plan, it doesn't happen. And any planning studies that are over $15,000 need to go on the capital plan. So what I had done for this fiscal year 24 budget process is request $30,000 for a zoning diagnostic. If you remember, when we went through the master plan, one of the recommendations was to, before we start tweaking zoning bylaws, is to go through a diagnostic first to understand what other parts of the zoning bylaw need changed. We kind of skipped right over that part, and this would allow us to circle back to getting a consultant on board to do that zoning diagnostic. It would do things like outline areas of our bylaw that are non-functional, and there are a few places that we have requirements that are not enforceable. So it'd bring us up to speed with that.
Okay.
So I was curious about the future about the upcoming master plan. I know it's in the future, but is that the time frame when it should be done, or could it be later, or?
You
said 2028 through 30.
Yeah, that's starting the process again, 10 or 11 years after the prior master plan was accepted, is probably the earliest that you would want to do it.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? Elise, you have anything?
Nope.
I think the only other thing is, from a scheduling standpoint, maybe next month, though, everyone I think got CC'd on a letter about Cooper Farms. Maybe we'll discuss that in January, see what, if anything, action we want to try to take, or what our next steps are with Cooper Farms. So why don't we just plan on putting that on for January's agenda? Is everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more comment. Northern Bank, on that property, they're doing hazardous materials abatement as we speak. And in so doing, they're more or less tearing down the greenhouse. So just to say that things are sort of moving. They disconnected the gas in the street. They've done various things. So
They took out the tanks at the gas station.
Yeah, wow.
They did ask to continue. They're still talking through the consultants, Green and Util. So they asked me last week, and I forgot to tell Martin, that's my mistake, to continue until January. So hopefully by the time we see them in January, they'll have worked out most of the details with the consultants, the questions or concerns the consultants have. So they are on for for January 5th, as far as I know. Okay, I think that brings us up to getting back on the agenda. Anyone else have any last questions or concerns before we jump back into regular board business? Nope, haven't heard nothing. I'm going to move on to our 6:20, which is 5 minutes late, but I'm promising I'm going to make up for it. Discussion. This has to do with the ladies who wanted to bring to the town meeting a bylaw to limit the amount of grow facilities for marijuana in the town. Wasn't presented properly, done correctly, and both Martin and myself reached out to them to ask them if they wanted to proceed with this, to talk to the planning board about it and get our help and input as to if they wanted to move forward. Are they here, Martin, or is it just
yeah, just a moment. Promote to panelists. Okay. So, okay. So I believe they have, oh, thank you.
okay? Do you want to be, is it just you're going to present, talk to us about it?
I think it's just me because Audrey's not able to move forward with it, so it's sort of been handed to me. I would love to move forward with this. I had Maren send you the Acton bylaws. Theirs is a little different because they are prohibiting all marijuana facilities except for medicinal. So I don't know how to do this or what I need to do to move it forward. I know we have one in town already. Do we want to limit, restrict any more from coming into town, or do we just want to make it more difficult and put some better parameters around it because of the disaster that is happening over on Taylor Street? So any guidance you can give me or any information you need from me, please let me know.
Well, if you want to bring it to town meeting, we'll have to do it as a zoning amendment, restricting, as is right now, we're a marijuana, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, we're a marijuana town. We allow retail sales, we allow, so it is different from Acton. If Acton only allows medical, we allow all the retail components that go with it. If you want to change the bylaw so that no more grow facilities or no more, we already have it that only 2 distribution facilities can go in. So we would have to change to start restricting other avenues of marijuana grow facilities. And I think that's all you're concerned about is the grow facilities. So if we want to restrict it to the one that we have here and not allow anymore, we'd have to amend the marijuana bylaw that we have. Which, if we decide, I think as the board, do we want to? Okay, there's 2 ways to go. You can do a citizen's petition and send the petition to us, or we can talk as a board and decide if we want to do it. Then we don't need a citizen's petition. Correct, Maren? If we do it that way, it'll be our. We'll be going with it. So
correct.
So I guess maybe I should speak with the board and while you're right here and see. Is that something we want to initiate, or would we rather the town bring it to us? So I'm going to start with Bartlett on that. Do you want to limit the amount of grow facilities in the town of Littleton for marijuana? Or do you want somebody to bring it to us and have us act on it?
Well, I would like to have somebody bring a proposal to us. I think that, I don't know if they're all going to be problematic if we let more in. I think the one that we have is a problem. Supposedly that there are, ways of attenuating the problems. And I really don't know if we should go ahead and try to ban something that we don't know what the problem is going to be.
I think the problem has, oh, sorry,
Yeah,
can I
go
speak or
ahead.
no? I think the
Go ahead.
problem has been made very clear. This is a facility that promised, as you heard at one of our, I think the
Yeah.
August meeting or whatever it was, promised all these mitigation things and has said they're doing them. And it's still a very bad situation for the neighbors. I can't imagine that another grow facility would come in and we wouldn't have these problems. And so my feeling is, why take the risk if we know we have one already in town that's
Mhm.
causing a lot of problems? Why take the risk? We're not saying no marijuana. We're not saying stop everything. I mean, I can see Collective from my house. He's going to manufacture and he sells retail. Okay, that's fine. I'm simply saying, let's protect the town of Littleton. We know the smell can travel up to a mile. We know the problems that the Taylor Street residents are having. Why kind of take that risk? Why don't we sort of limit what we have and be friendly if retailers want to come in or manufacturers or whatever, but just prevent the growing, because that's where the biggest problems seem to arise. And if you can find all sorts of incidences online for towns all across the country that are now realizing how damaging this can be to a town. We have so much open space. We have so much farmland. We have neighborhoods. I don't know where a facility would go where it wouldn't affect people or places in town. And so I'm not saying no marijuana. I'm saying let's stop the grow facilities, I guess.
But you're saying that all or most of these facilities that are very, very concentrated with multiple levels and totally artificial environments creates bad smells that are a problem.
Yes, the residents of Taylor Street said the guys open the back door for a smoke break and it fills the neighborhood. I mean, it's not a vacuum. The smell has to go somewhere, which we discussed at that last meeting.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into the aspects of, I just want to try to get an idea whether we want to do it or move. I don't want to debate whether.
Okay.
Let's
Sure.
just assume that there is an issue and that what's the next step. So let me,
Okay.
Bartlett, you've said you'd like a citizen petition. So let me ask the rest of the board. We're gonna have enough debate this evening. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't put my
Fine.
debating shoes on this afternoon. So Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I'm open to us amending the bylaw based on all of the complaints we received and all the concerns we received about the various proposals. We could do something like as a sort of intermediate thing, like the proposed gun bylaw, where we, impose a, 1,000-foot limit, which would drastically, reduce it, but I think it's something that is a reasonable concern. And I think it's a lot to ask the average citizen to come forward with the amendment. And I think we should do it.
Okay. Delisa, what do you think?
I'm in disagreement with Jeff. I think I would be fine with the citizens petition. I do not feel that it is the planning board's purview to enact something like this. I think the town has already voted twice to allow marijuana or cannabis in the town. So I certainly would be willing to listen to a citizen petition, but I will not vote in favor of changing a bylaw just unilaterally because the planning board decides to do that. I don't think that's our responsibility, nor do I think we have the right to do that.
Okay. Anna?
So my perspective is that I would like the board to do it in a similar fashion that Jeff commented. I think that the process is arduous. And if we take a look at what Acton did, and this is something that maybe we can ask town council because they're here, because it was a moratorium on marijuana, they had to have a two-step process. Something had to be on the ballot and then something had to be done at town meeting. So if we're going to have a moratorium on this, do we also have to have it on the ballot? That's my question for town council, or maybe Mara knows the answer to that.
We're a quote unquote marijuana town, whereas Akron is not. So I don't think we can have a moratorium on it. I think if we're going to address the issue, we need to, planning board needs to put it on whole public hearings and let the residents come and decide whether they want to change the bylaw that way. I don't think a moratorium is going to do
Right.
something.
So
don't think we
I
can.
use the wrong word. I mean, a moratorium hereafter, right? Is if that's what the board wanted to do. So anyway, you
Okay.
asked a specific question and my specific response is I would like for the board to take up this issue.
All right, and I'm going to weigh in. I agree. We know that there's residents in the town that are concerned about it. We're planning board, and our job is to do the bidding of the residents in the town of Littleton for zoning issues and things like that. I think it's a lot to ask the citizens to do the petition, even though it's 25 signatures or anything else like that. But I think if they've come before us and they've told us that there's an issue, that I think, just like the guns and everything else, I think it should come from us. So I think we should do it. So I think we should start thinking about scheduling time to hold public hearings on it and talk to town council about what's the best way to go about. If we want to change our bylaws so that the one that's here is allowed to stay, or maybe we do two grow facilities, like we have 2 retail facilities, whatever we decide. But I think Maren and I will circle back to town council and we'll start holding public hearings on it. Is that I think that's the best way to handle it. I don't think it's fair to you to have to shoulder the burden yourself. I think there's enough people that were concerned about it that we should, as a board, we should take it up. I think that's the way we should handle it. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And if there's anything I can do to help or you need information, please let me know. I'm happy to be involved.
Okay. All right. So we'll reach out to town council and we'll figure out and start the public hearing process on it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Continue public hearing. Am I on timer? A couple minutes. 6:30 public hearing, 6 spectacle on water resource district special permit, site plan review, and stormwater permit for Jensen Builders Contracting LLC.
Okay, just a moment. Let's see. Gonna promote Seth Donahoe and Mr. Jensen. There you go.
Good evening, board members. I cut out for a second while I was reconnecting. Is it all right to catch you up on our back and forth since our last meeting?
Yes, that would be great.
So we were before you starting back in October, and this is a site plan and special permit for the property at 6 Spectacle Pond Road. It's an existing industrial site. It's located right next to the dump. And we are proposing to install a building for contractor bays, as well as supplementing the existing use of the site. And in doing that, there were numerous upgrades. The site presently lacks any form of stormwater management. It also lacks a septic system, and many of the utilities on the site are improvised. So those were all coupled in with our application. Since our meeting in October, we've had some back and forth with your peer reviewer. I believe at this point, almost all, if not all, the technical comments have been satisfied. And there's a couple discretionary items that are left for the board to deliberate on in that matrix. We did submit some revised plans that generally had some housekeeping items requested by the peer reviewer, but there were no changes to the layout or anything substantial that I feel the need to dive back into. I hope that provides you a up-to-date summary of where we are in this process, and I'm here tonight to get your feedback. Marin was kind enough to forward us a draft decision for this project. I feel that as we discussed this over the past couple months, it's generally been well received, and we've been able to address all the comments. The only thing on the applicant's end is there's a condition 8 in the special permit, and that is related to parking. Well, we fully acknowledge that vehicles using the building will have to use the parking spaces. We don't want that to be construed into that there will not be equipment on the balance of the site. There's equipment there now, and there always has been. But we just want to make sure that all of our expectations are in line on that. So if there's any specific questions that are left over, I'm happy to dive into those, or I'd be happy to let you guys discuss any of the conditions that remain.
Okay. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Donahoe at this time? I think he's addressed the one outstanding issue was parking in the back. It's a contractor's property. It's going to have heavy equipment. It's going to have building materials. That's all going to be stored in the fenced-in area in the back, correct?
That's correct. So one of the things that the board had asked from us is to provide additional screening. We actually did have some back and forth about exactly where the site is, because as it is naturally, it's a little bit difficult to see. It's set down from the road slightly. We did incorporate a landscape plan that whole rear area is to be supplemented with some tall evergreen vegetation along the right of way installed on private property, but screening that portion of the site. So I feel that has been addressed.
The way it is right now, you have a pile of dumpsters and everything else. So anything is probably going to be a better situation than what's out there now. So anyway,
Right.
Any questions? Violet, do you have any questions or concerns about this?
Not really, no. I mean, I've observed that there's a line of dumpsters along what appears to be the back of the site. Are they going to stay there or are they going to go away?
Well, the applicant, we're actually working with the Conservation Commission right now. And one of the things that we've integrated into the site is a vegetated berm that is in the vicinity of those dumpsters. And that's really to prevent anything from encroaching closer to the wetlands, which are located to the rear of the site. And the applicant, his goal is to have no dumpsters there because his business is to rent those out. And ideally, they stay on client sites. From time to time, there will be dumpsters stored there, and they will be within the screened area if this project moves forward.
Okay. Jeff, do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, it comes down to, what's stored on the site. And as long as I don't know, I don't know how we would fine tune this, but if it's, in relationship to the contractor bays, yes. But for instance, on Air Road, there's a site where a whole bunch of junked appliances are being stored. Do we want that there? It's one thing to have building equipment, builders equipment and even dumpsters and everything related. I don't know if there's an answer to that. So, I appreciate the berm. I think that's a great solution to demarcating where this storage can be. I appreciate the evergreen planting. But that's my only concern.
Okay. Delisa? No? Anna?
Sorry, I think we've already discussed all of my concerns, so I have nothing further to add.
Anna?
I had a couple of questions. So how did the peer review item, I think it was 26 around sewage calculations, get resolved? Or did that get resolved? Because it seemed like there was an excess of what was allowable on the site. Is that right?
Well, I can address that. So the site is located within the Aquifer District, which has a severe limitation on the allowable sewage flow, well under what's allowed by the state or on a typical site in your town. And part of actually the entirety of our special permit is related to that. We're allowed to exceed that with your permission, and that's what the special permit request is. And so our flows are still well under what the state would allow for a site of this size. So put that in perspective, this site without a special permit would be allowed to have 824 gallons per day of sewage. And we are asking for relief to allow 1,350 gallons per day for the proposed use. And then that's really a belt and suspenders approach here too. We've classified the entirety of the building as an office space for the purpose of the sewage calculation, which is extremely conservative in that the bottom floor is essentially an open bay garage, which would be classified as warehouse. In the real world, there'll be much less utilized there, but we just decided to take a conservative approach on that and came before you for this special permit.
And so in asking the question, and thank you for your response, I'm looking at the condition item number 5, where it says groundwater quality shall not be degraded. And so because we are allowing this, I didn't see anywhere else within the decision that it says that we are allowing this to move forward specifically. So in other words, I'd like to have our decision say that we are intentionally allowing this to move forward, even though it is exceeding flow by, 200 gallons. So can we add that to the decision, Maren?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
But also, Anna, so groundwatering has to be drinking water standard at the property line, so they have to do that anyway, so
Okay,
we're still protected that way.
thank you. The second thing that I wanted to ask about is related to the ADA question that was brought up by a resident a couple times ago. And I believe the response from the applicant was that the second floor ADA would be addressed if a client needed it. And so from that standpoint, in Massachusetts, what is the ADA requirement? Does there need to be an elevator if there's a second floor? I'm just truly asking that question because I don't know the answer.
Well, I could certainly tell you from experience, I've been in many 2-floor buildings recently, and I'll start this by saying I'm no expert on the interior ADA requirements of a building. Our work is generally related to the access of the building, which we've provided with ADA parking spaces and an accessible route to the building. But I've certainly been in many recent 2-story buildings that do not have an elevator, commercial buildings.
So, Maren, Mark, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, the ADA requirements for the building permit will be reviewed. I'm not saying this well. For the building permit process, the ADA requirements are reviewed for the structure itself. It's my understanding that something like 40% of the building needs to be accessible.
What Maren's trying to say is that the building department, they will look at to make sure they're ADA compliant before he's going to issue. They're the experts on it before they issue any building permits for this.
Okay.
So,
And it has to do with the use of the second floor. If it's an office adjunct to what's going in the first floor, you don't need an elevator. If you were putting in a retail store up there,
you'd have to, yeah.
would have to. So,
Okay. All right, that's all very helpful. Thank you. And then my
Yeah.
final question is, and this is a question for Maren and Mark again, based off historical ways of doing things. So do we have any kind of precedent for making sure that we have construction mitigation plans in terms of like noise and dust and anything like that for this particular site?
We absolutely do, because the stone yard is right around the corner from it. And the residents who were in the trailer park complained about the stone yard, and the stone yard was shut down. The building department got involved, set hours of operations that when there was a complaint, set limits as to what they had to do to mitigate the dust. So there is, all of that is right there. If there's a complaint or if there's an issue with what's going on there, the building department will definitely get involved.
So is that something that needs to go in as a condition in terms of what that plan is?
I don't believe it needs to go in as part of that. I think it's just the way our zoning is. So Maren, you can correct me on that one.
I agree with you, Mark. The noise bylaw is the reference for all construction and ongoing operations. And the state has jurisdiction over the air quality, the dust issues.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we've had the same issue down where the potpourri and all of those, where there was, because they're right up against the neighborhoods there, and the building department got involved anytime there was any complaint that it had nothing to do with our special permit or anything else. It's just the way our zoning. They have to meet all the regulations for our zoning, and if they're in violation or if there's a complaint about it, then the building department gets involved and takes care of whatever needs to be done, like they did at the stone yard.
Okay, well, that's all, again, very helpful historical information. So those are the only questions I had.
Great. So we have the conditions of approval. Anyone have any other issues with it? If not, I'd like to close the public hearing and vote the conditions of approval and
Mark, I'll interrupt for just a moment. My recommendation was that for the outdoor storage and outdoor use and storage that's proposed on the site, that area just be shown on the plans so that in the future, if there are questions about enforcement, it's already shown on the plan. It's clear where that can occur. Just given history from a couple of other sites.
Lauren, we actually added that on the last submittal. So there's
Okay,
two
good.
sheets that had that area documented. And it's within the limits of the existing utilized area. So we're not requesting an expansion of that. We're actually using what's there and it's outside of the parking areas as well.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Can we close it? Approve the conditions?
I move we close the hearing.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, signify by saying aye. Anna,
Yes,
Delisa,
Yes,
Jeff?
Aye.
Bartlett?
Yes,
And I'm a yes. And now the conditions of approval as presented to us, entertain a motion to approve those as well. Somebody, anybody?
I'll second it.
A second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anna,
yes,
Delisa,
Yes,
Jeff,
Yes.
Bartlett,
yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. We're all
Thank
done.
you. And happy holidays. Hope to see you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, staff. Thank you. Okay, so now we have a 6:45 and I'm running 5 minutes late. I'm entitled. Okay, so before we get into the zoning amendment for the proposed firearms, just want to remind everybody of what we asked town council to do and what we're doing here. We asked town council to give us a bylaw that has passed the attorney general, so they have pretty much written everything in there. I don't want to, I'm trying very hard not to get inundated with the little details of what we're proposing. We're proposing a bylaw that we don't have currently. And Maurice, you and Tom can jump in anytime you want. I'm just trying to preface everything and say, you did a great job writing it, getting it to us, and making sure that what we have will pass muster on the first try, or hopefully on the first try with the Attorney General. That's what I'm trying to tell everyone, that it's geared to make sure that we have protection, we have a bylaw in place moving forward at our special town. The intention is to have a special town meeting as quickly as possible to enact this bylaw. The biggest concern is the 500 to 1,000 feet change, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. We did that because the 500 was approved by the Attorney General's office. If we put it at 1,000 and we couldn't show a higher number of places that it could go, that there's a good possibility that our bylaw would be stricken down because we're not actually giving them the ability to cite this anywhere.
Thank you, Mark. So yeah, I think I think you've captured it. What we've tried to deliver here is a conservative bylaw that we're confident will pass muster with the Attorney General's office, and yet that provides a sufficient level of protection to the town under its zoning bylaw. Marisa, do you want to jump in and talk about kind of maybe the differences between the last version and the tweaks we've made between the last version and tonight's version?
Yes, I can do that. Maren, do you have a version that you could share that everyone could see? And then I'll just quickly kind of go through some of the changes that we made based on the feedback we received, and then leave it open for any questions or comments. So starting with scrolling down to location requirements, we just kind of briefly touched on that, the change to 500 feet because it's actually defensible. 1,000 feet just didn't really allow enough locations. Scrolling down further, I'll let Tom address the point on certain sensitive uses, catering to minors. But if you could go to section 173-238, and that's the buffer zone. We added some language in there, I think in subsection B. Yes. So this was just to clarify that if, for example, there isn't a structure on the property, if it's conservation land or passive recreation land and there's no structure, then you would measure to the property line, because before those uses just said the structure. This just provides for if there's no structure, then you would use the property line. And then scrolling down to administration and procedure, we added a clause that the operations and management plan that would be provided to the police department for review and approval needs to include a security plan. So it kind of specifies that there has to be a security plan there. And then under subsection D there, we added number 11. This was the liability insurance provision that was requested. So we added that someone applying for a special permit would also need to show proof that they have liability insurance. And then scrolling down to security, we added there again, just to kind of reiterate that prior to submitting your application, you need to have a security plan that's approved, reviewed and approved by the police department. And then section 242. So 242 is where we specifically say that when the planning board is reviewing an application, you can consider any input that the police department provides on the security plan. We can't require that they give you a recommendation, but if they do want to give input, you have to consider that when you're making your findings. And the other thing I want to add on that is that the planning board's regulations for special permits allow you to engage a peer reviewer for any part of the special permit process. So that's something that you could engage a peer reviewer for as well, if you had any concerns about what security would be like on the site. And then in section 244, there was concern about transferring a special permit. So here we said that we just struck that language so that if someone wanted to, they couldn't just transfer it to another business without going through the whole special permit process again. And then because we've added liability insurance, we added subsection D, which provides that if for any reason the liability insurance expires or is canceled and there's no other insurance provided to replace that, then the special permit terminates. I think that covers the feedback from the last meeting. I do know that Anna had made some suggestions as well, just as to terminology about, daycare versus childcare and some other grammatical suggestions for changes. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I'll let her introduce those or cover those if she wants to discuss that.
Okay.
And before we do, Maren, could you just scroll down to the bottom of this page? Okay, so I just wanted to touch on this 173-238A4. So these are, what I'm calling the sensitive receptors. And so it says currently any establishment catering to or providing services primarily intended for minors, including but not limited to establishments such as activity centers or commercial recreation centers. And then we say IE, so we're limiting it to these for commercial recreation centers, the YMCA, the rock climbing gym, or the Little Gym of Littleton. And I think this is kind of a good tightening up to limit it to those places for recreational for recreation centers, because kind of one of the concerns here is, in general, we don't want to have a bylaw that kind of ultimately rules out all properties in town. And I think the question came up at the last hearing, you know, if a new nursery school is sited in town, does that count? It does, right? So we need to plan around both what we have now and what might pop up. So we don't want this to be too open or too vague, with the idea that it could become kind of too broad across the board and kind of limit you or kind of zone us out of any locations. As I'm sitting here, though, I'm actually thinking of one thing. I think there was a suggestion to add, there's a music school in town. And was there a suggestion to add music school? And as I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know that we did that.
The music school in town is leaving town, but at any rate, it was next to the high school.
Okay.
And it also was in the mill. There was a music school in the
Right.
mill. That was what the concern was. Everyone got up and spoke that they didn't feel safe about going to the music school that was there.
Is that music school still located there?
It's still in the mill, yeah?
Do you want to add that to the bylaw? And I guess looking to Maren, if we do, I don't think that's going to impact. I mean, I know we have current uses there, but that's not what I'm thinking about future uses.
That parcel where the mill is in the Village Common Mixed Use District, so it's already not,
Okay,
yeah,
it's already protected.
correct, thank you.
All right.
I have a question. What is the YMCA in Littleton?
There is not.
There is no one. We don't
I
have one.
wish we had one.
Oh, so let's take that out.
That's what I thought. I thought maybe you knew something I didn't.
I go to the YMCA in Littleton all the time.
Yeah, with the village people, right?
All right, we'll make that edit and send you, kind of a version after this.
Okay. Great job, Marisa and Tom. Does the board have any questions? Like I said, the biggest change of this whole thing is going from the 1,000 feet down to 500 to try to 500 we know will pass, 1,000 we are unsure whether it would pass or not. So that's
Yeah, and it's not the number, right? It's 1,000 feet could be perfectly acceptable if it left some parcels open. I think the
Right.
concern is that it eliminates too many parcels.
by using it on the maps, it knocked out an awful lot of parcels. So anyway, does anyone have any, Jeff, do you have any questions or concerns about this?
No, I just wanted to respond though to, like Mark Rombacher's, there was something about being able to save the video surveillance. And I think that's best left to whatever security operations plan is agreed to with the police department. I don't think it should be in the bylaw.
Okay. Good point. Anna, what about you?
I agree because there isn't any other precedent. And then I just have one other question that I wanted to raise with the board.
Okay, go ahead.
So with respect to page 3, item number 9, talking about a full description of what kind of business is going to go on there. It's left very wide open. And I just want to make sure that the board understands that by not having anything more prescriptive there, that we might get a sentence or we might get 2 pages worth of information in terms of business description. But because it's so wide open, I want to make sure that the board will be open to having the discussion, that if any one of us doesn't feel comfortable that we really understand what's happening there, that we will continue to question it until we can get enough, to feel satisfied.
Do you feel, Tom, do you feel comfortable that what a full description of, we're gonna get a business, something like a business plan or I mean, we all know they're gonna buy guns wholesale and sell them retail. I mean, I don't know how much more of a business plan you would want, but a list of what they're gonna sell, maybe,
So I guess I'd answer it this way. So a full description, right, is, you know, we kind of use the common meaning there. And to me, a full description is, you know, should offer a proper explanation, you know, and not a sentence or two. And I get the only concern would be, Anna, do we use this exact language, a full description of the intended nature of the business elsewhere in the bylaw? And if we do we let people kind of skate with a few sentences? I guess Maren, you'd probably have a better idea than anyone on that one.
Yeah, I was trying to think of where we might use the words. My guess is, and I'll just have to guess, is that we use that in the adult use marijuana bylaw.
Correct. And that one's a lot more prescriptive.
So Anna, as long as, you know, as long as someone can't throw in our face, you use this terminology elsewhere and you don't require it to do anything. So you can't then require that here. Removing that as a concern, I do think using the common definition of a full description, you know, you can require a complete understanding of what's happening there. And if they don't, I think you can use it as grounds to not issue the permit.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
any other concerns?
No, the terminology that Marika was referencing is the term change from daycare to childcare. And then the other one is that in multiple areas, there is a request for the applicant's address, and I requested that we put either home or residential address there because we asked for their business address, but we also want to make sure that we get that home or residential address because we do make that request in other applications like the marijuana one.
Can we put it in the security arrangement that they're going to be submitting with the police department that the applicant has to give? If they don't give it to us, they have to make sure the police have their actual home address so that if something goes on, the owner, I think they do it normally anyway, so that they can contact the owner to get into the building and things like that if they have to.
Well, it's on page, it's currently on page 3, item D is in dog. And then it's in there 1, 2, 3, 4 different times where it just says address. And I would just feel more comfortable if it said residential address. It's also on the state application for firearms. So I just think it's kind of a typically used kind of thing.
I have no problem with inserting residential address before business address.
Okay.
Owner's residential address. Okay, cool, good. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Jeff, do you have anything? You good?
No.
Delisa?
I'm with the 500.
Okay. Delisa, do you have?
No,
Nope.
I'm fine.
Bartlett? Bartlett, are you good? Did we lose Bartlett? No.
So Mark,
Go ahead.
I'd like to be able to have a discussion about the 500-foot map, just to make sure that 2 of the areas we have a little bit more discussion about
Okay.
it before we go down that
Okay.
road. But I don't have any other comments about the bylaw.
All right. Do you want to pull up the map real quick?
Well, I have a question about the maps versus the bylaw. Will the maps be, will they be like on file at the planning board so that a potential business owner could come in and look at them? Or how do we intend to use them? Or are they just a reference for the zoning officer?
I would think that just for our use, whoever comes in has to demonstrate to us that they're in compliance with the bylaws, so they have to have an engineer do their own maps and everything and present it to us that they're in compliance. So they would, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're gonna have to prove to us,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
off of our map. Our map is just guidance for us for this bylaw.
I would agree with that. And I think it's important that Pete, that we don't telegraph to the public that this is some sort of, these are the approved sites for this. This was nothing more than a planning exercise to make sure that we were leaving open viable locations for applicants to pursue, but we're not promising that those, actually work or will always be available. And, things are going to change, right? Because a school can move, a sensitive receptor pops up, a sensitive receptor leaves. So that changes the calculus. So to me, yeah, I don't think we want to use these as something to share with potential applicants. They're going to have to hire their own engineer to do their own study.
It's their dime. They're gonna have to take
Makes
care of
sense.
this is just to make sure that we're giving them something that potentially will work. We're not guaranteeing it will work, just potentially it will work. Anyway, all right, so what's the area that you want to look at, Anna?
So, two areas, the Great Road one, if we can enhance that to a more readable percentage. So just to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So if we look at go back up to the Great Road one. Here we go. So, so just to make sure I'm reading this properly, the area in yellow is the quote potential area, right? Not the hatched area, but the actual bright mustard yellow. Okay. So the area that I had a question about is that little itty bit of yellow in the bottom. And I can't even see where that actually is.
That's 410 Great Road.
Okay. So aren't we sort of adding insult to injury by leaving that there as such, especially given the fact that we're going to have so much potential for retail and activation of community activities in that space?
That's not really 410 Great Road. 410 Great
And
Road.
actually, but if I may, that being there, just that yellow being in that location is not actually correct. The underlying zoning map that we used has not been updated to show the exact extent of the Village Common mixed use district. All mixed use districts are sensitive areas, not allowed.
Okay.
So that's,
right.
yeah,
Perfect. Thank
it's
you.
a function of the underlying zoning map being incorrect.
That's
Okay.
technically part of the highway part, and if I'm not mistaken, there's no building there because it's a swamp right there. It's
Well, that's why I couldn't figure out what it was. So
Okay.
that's why I'm asking.
okay.
Then the second area, if you move toward there's no way to make this one bigger. It's the Omega Way one, which is on the right-hand side of the map. Oh, there it is. Thank you. So I have a concern about this because I just know that I recognize that there's a little industrial area right over in that space, but it's really surrounded by residential. And so I wanted to ask the board whether or not we could consider omitting this one as a whole or not.
I think what's missing from this diagram are wetlands.
Yeah, that's
That entire area is wetland.
right.
I agree with you, Anna. I mean, I think that's a terrible location for, a gun dealer, but I don't, the existing buildings are within the, outside of the allowed area. I, having been down there many times, I can't see any development potential for a building.
I think Jeff's completely right. It's not taking into account the wetlands. So maybe it is 500 feet from the water and all this other stuff, but that's all wetlands. It's all unbuilt. You could never build anything down there. And plus, not to mention, that's not even an accepted way down there. That's a private way. Omega Way is private there right now. It's not even on a road. So it's one of those, that whole area is is an anomaly. It was done industrial way before zoning came in, and it was left that way, but it's a private
Well,
road and it's all swamp.
And I hear what you're saying, and I just always prefer to be more conservative, and that's why I'm
Well,
on the
again,
table.
this is just for our use. They're gonna have to prove to us that they could actually go down there, and I doubt they're gonna be able to prove that at all. You know, there's no road there. They're not on an accepted roadway. That's a private road. So the whole parcel is not allowed. So, like I said, again, these maps are just for our use.
All right, so those are my questions on the map. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see those as viable, really viable sites. The only thing going from 500 to 1,000 puts into play the sites that are behind the old Sandville building that give us a couple more spots that they could potentially go into. Anyway, I don't know how to. I think Omega Way is just not actually a real site in the first place. They'd have to accept they'd have to, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, it's a private way of servicing a business that's been down there for 70 years or something like that. It's an industrial before zoning came in, that's why it's there. And it's a private way. It's not even a public roadway, so. Littleton Lumber owns it all, and the reason they own it all is because they could never, as far as I know, they could never subdivide it off. It's all wetlands, and that it's grandfathered the way it is. So, is that enough protection for those two little spots? That's what I guess I'm asking.
Yeah, so ignore, so kind of not discussing whatever environmental issues reside down there. I do think a private way it doesn't need to be a public way to have a commercial facility on it. Private ways can hold commercial facilities. The other things you're talking about, I don't know about, but this is also kind of potential, right? So someone could bring the road up to sufficient, width, grade, and construction, and seek that it become a public way.
Well, that way, yeah, okay. All right, but again, we have to
Lots of work required.
Yep.
Likely.
And conservation, yeah, it's okay. All right, so I think it stays, and let's see. Good luck to them to try to get it to go in there, I guess is the best way to put it. If anyone looks at it. Anyway, anything else? Does the board have any other questions or concerns? Is there anybody in the audience with their hand raised, Maren?
Yes. Bobby Drexel.
Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I'm here. I just have a few questions. One is, have you guys actually told publicly the number of parcels that would be available with the 500 feet versus the 1,000 feet? I've never heard actual numbers that with 1,000 we could only have 3 gun dealers, but with 500 we could have 10. Is that number available?
So this is Tom Harrington, Town Council. I'm not sure it is, and it wasn't necessarily our goal to fine tune it. So we've identified parcels of land that meet the criteria we've set out, but whether someone can divide those parcels into 2 lots or 3 lots or remains a single lot is a level of analysis that I think we're not able to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maren.
I think how we left it, to be honest with you, Bobby, was that when we were at 1,000, there were only 2 or 3 spots that were available. We all kind of thought that was not enough to pass muster. We know 500 passed with the Newton. Was it Newton or was it Wellesley? I get them mixed up. Which one passed at 500? Wellesley passed, so that's why we decided to go down there. We're not trying to tell people where they can go. As we said earlier, the maps are purely for us to to make sure that we're on firm ground. We don't want to say that they can or can't go here. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to present a bylaw that says that, yes, it'll pass the Attorney General, and that's the threshold I think we've stopped at, for lack of a better way of looking at it. But I think when we started at 1,000, it's too restrictive, and we could only come up, when I did the mapping on my own and looking around, I only came up with 2 or 3 places that it would go, and I think we all decided that wasn't enough.
Okay, thank you. I have a few other questions, if that's okay. One question I have is with the security plan. If we're asking, if the bylaw just kind of states you need to submit a security plan to the police department without giving any parameters, I feel like that lends itself to more variability with what could be submitted. I do believe that in some of the past discussions, some parameters were put forth as far as what needs to be included in a security plan. Is that something we might want to think about, or should we just leave it up to the police department to know that they're going to have their own kind of standards of what should be in a security plan?
I guess I would answer that by saying we have a pretty robust security plan for the marijuana facilities. I would think for a gun, we'd probably do no less than that. And also, as we stated earlier, it's up to us, the planning board, if we decide that we want to have an outside consultant come in and give us the best available technology that other towns are using to make sure a gun dealer is a safe place to buy a gun, that we would have the ability to use that for our security plan.
Okay, great. So what you're saying is at the point when you are deciding whether a vendor can get a special permit, that's when you would say, the security plan isn't sufficient, or, we're looking for more depth. Is that what you're saying?
The way the bylaw is read, we can't even approve it until the security plan is passed muster, not only with us, but with the police department.
Great. And so it is correct that the planning board is the one that ultimately issues a special permit, correct?
Yeah, we are the special permit granting authority, yes.
Great. That's what I thought. One other thing I would ask, since we took the Y out, can we put the music school in? I know this might be, doing that fine tuning you didn't want to do, but since it was offered, I would feel more comfortable putting the music school back in, because I know with the future of the mill, that music school is going to be moving. And I just think it would be nice to have that included in the bylaw as one of the special locations.
Well, let me ask Tom this. Tom, right now we don't allow anything within a school. Would a music school be considered a school? Do we catch it that way?
I don't think so necessarily, unless I think we could add school, including music school, but there's entities that refer to themselves as school, and that's not necessarily what we're trying to catch. What we're truly trying to catch is, public schools, private schools, nursery schools, and then I think after that, correct me if I'm wrong, Marisa, but then I think the gating factor is, kind of it's much more use for those under 18 as opposed to adults.
Correct. And I think if the bylaw, the section of the bylaw that refers to locations that primarily cater to minors, if the music school is something that primarily caters to minors, then that would be a protected use. If it was something that only, adults use, then no, I don't think it would be. But if the majority of the users of the music school are minors, it's protected.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, that sounds good to me. I just brought it up because he had mentioned it in the beginning.
Right.
One last thing is, has there been any discussion about having a moratorium on providing new special permits until this bylaw is actually enforceable?
We talked about it at the last meeting. It is coming down the pike. I guess I think the way Tom and I had left it was that we're considering it a moratorium, whether someone wants to challenge us or not. We are trying to have a special town meeting as quickly as possible. I've been told it's probably early February to enact this. So We're looking at about 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
So the question for Tom is, what is the time between enacting it at town meeting and approval by the Attorney General?
You mean typically how long does that take?
Yeah.
They have 90 days from the receipt of the package from the town clerk. So the town clerk puts together the package, says, we conducted a town meeting. Here were our zoning changes. Here's a certified copy of the vote. They review it and they have 90 days to respond. But remember that the bylaw technically becomes effective the date of the first publication, which goes back to November 2nd, I think.
So we're technically in a moratorium now. We wait for it to be approved.
Yeah, it does. So, and again, it's a slight technicality there, in that doesn't mean someone can't come forth and seek approval, but that approval could evaporate, with a successful vote at town meeting and then AG approval.
Okay, Bobby, does that answer all your questions?
Yeah, that was my last question. So what we're looking at though, is 4 months essentially, if all goes well, because AG could come back and say, okay, it's been 90 days, but hey, we actually want you to tweak this or tweak that. I also know that first 90 days may not completely resolve it. And my concern is that we get into 6 months and then a year. And I truly don't know what it takes to create a moratorium, but I just know that from what I've heard online, these guys who own these gun dealers are really annoyed, and I could see them saying, well, hey, screw you, we're gonna set up shop over here or over there, and you can't stop us. So I would like to just have more security that says, no, we're everything is on hold. No one can challenge it until this new bylaw is enforceable.
So a moratorium is technically, it's a zoning bylaw. So it would be a zoning bylaw that says we're not going to accept any applications for a period of time until we figure things out. So we'd be taking that to town meeting the same way we'd be taking this. I don't think the moratorium buys you what you want it to buy you.
But if you're saying that this moratorium is going to town meeting in 6 weeks, let's say the town approves both of the bylaws, then it does give me what I want. It tells me, all right, nothing is going to happen now. Our town has voted on this, and now we're waiting for the AG process to do its part.
But the moratorium goes through the AG process too.
Oh, that's the part I didn't understand. Okay, so that I didn't get that piece. So even the moratorium has to be approved by the AG.
It's a zoning bylaw, just like what we're doing now.
Got it. I'm sorry, that piece I didn't understand. Okay, then I see what you mean. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maren, anyone else have their hand raised?
So Erica Podgorny.
Yeah,
Erica, are you
I
there?
just had a couple questions. Bobby cleared up a couple of mine, but with the child sensitive places, I just want to be clear that we're not saying like, these are the places we consider child sensitive, right? It's if they come up and, there's a place that we haven't considered and someone comes before it and we say, oh, wait a minute, there's, a music school or there's a karate place or something like that, that's included, even though it's not listed there, correct?
I would say yes, and I'll just make sure Tom's confirmed. If there's,
You want to handle that one?
I'm just saying yes. If there's a place of gathering that is primarily juveniles, and we didn't list it as, if it's say somebody puts an art shop in their building and they want to just have aspiring artists in there, and we didn't put that in there, it's gonna have the same like and feel of what we're trying to propose, and we would turn it down from a planning board standpoint because it's a place that young people gather, and we would have the right to turn it down that way. Is that a fair assessment, Tom or Marissa?
So I think the intent there with listing the Little Gym of Littleton and places like that, it wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list. It was meant to provide examples of what types of uses that primarily cater to minors. So it wouldn't be something that, okay, on a Saturday, there might be a toddler party at McDonald's. So McDonald's is sensitive. That's not the idea. It would be, I think you'd have to look at, how many days per week are there minors there? Is it 8 hours a day? Is this primarily a place where you would have minors? And the reason that we're trying to give a little bit more guidance here is because in Wellesley's bylaw, there wasn't any guidance as to what is a place intended for minors. And the Attorney General, in making a decision on that bylaw, said, this leaves it open-ended so that the special permit granting authority could be seen as abusing their discretion because there's not really any guiding principles as to what's a place catering to minors. And she, suggested that the town look at amending the bylaw in the future. So we are trying to avoid that same result. So this list wasn't intended, again, as an exhaustive list, but just kind of examples of what types of analysis you need to engage in to determine that you want it to be a sensitive use.
So,
without being arbitrary.
Yeah, and in that case, my suggestion is going to be that right now it says IE and we go back to EG. So that it's clear, they're just examples, it's not an exhaustive list. And then I think you've got the control, the board's going to make the decision.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my other question was about the security. A couple of things. So I'm concerned that there's no parameters for what security we're looking for. So, someone could go to the police department and say, well, we have locks on the doors and, that's a security plan. It's a really bad one, but it's a security plan. So how do we know that we're getting good security plans? Especially if the police then aren't required to give you a report on that. How do you know that the security plan is a reasonable one?
So I'll go back to what I said to the last person that raised their hand. We're going to probably use the security, something similar to what we're using for the marijuana. That's spelled out, that's in detail. We have the ability to have a consultant come in and look at their security plan along with the police and police department. And same thing we do with the fire department as well. If we're not comfortable that their security plan is adequate, then we don't approve them. And they have to be approved before we even start the permitting process. So I think we have enough latitude and discretion to address what we think is inadequate. I agree with you. Locks on the door is not a security plan. We need to make sure there's a way to let people in and out. It's going to be up to us to make sure the plan is robust enough to protect that building. Go ahead, Tom. I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Can I make a comment as well, Mark?
All right, go ahead.
I just want to point out, if you look at the security section in the draft bylaw, there are some basic parameters that a proponent would have to follow. Trash dumpsters have to be locked, enclosed in a screened enclosure. There's provision for lighting all parking areas. You have to have burglary and robbery alarms. So there are some minimum standards that you couldn't just say the doors lock. You have to show a physical layout of the entire building. There's a provision for keeping, firearms that are in stock, locked in containers. So there are some parameters in the bylaw that at a minimum would have to be met.
And I would add to that, Mark, it's not always a one size fits all approach. So, we could put out, here's exactly what you need. And in some cases, it might be overkill, and in some cases, it might be insufficient. So that's why we want the police to look at it. And even though we can't require them to do it, it's true, but we're pretty confident that they're going to. And again, if we're, if we want a higher level of surety on the permit granting side, we can also bring in a consultant. So I think that a little flexibility can actually work in our favor as opposed to an applicant trying to, short us.
Okay.
Also, belts and suspenders, we've added this $1 million liability policy. I would think that any policy would require a security plan, according to the standards of the insurer. I'm not saying we should rely on that, but that is also an issue.
Another set of
The
eyes.
premiums are going to be a lot less with a robust security plan.
All right, Erica, any other comments?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Maren, anyone else? No?
No other hands raised.
Great. All right, so we're at the point now that we have to decide what we want to do. The select board is very anxious for us to finish up our meeting, approve the plan that town councils have given us, and their assurance that this is the best opportunity to pass with the Attorney General. And I'd like to close it, vote it, and send a letter to the selectmen so that they can act on it at their next meeting, so we can get it on for February. Get it on town meeting floor for February 17th. Is that what it is?
7 is the current discussion.
What?
7.
February 7th is currently. So if the board doesn't have any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the bylaw as presented by Mauricio and Tom Harrington's office to us, and vote it, and then approve it, and send a letter to the select board asking them to put it on the warrant, a warrant article as soon as possible for us.
I so move.
Second,
I'll second it.
I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Jeff,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
is Bartlett still here?
Here he is.
Oh,
He just
Bartlett,
showed up.
Bartlett,
Yeah, what?
yes.
Of course.
Oh, and I'm a yes.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, Bartlett
right.
just rejoined.
All right.
The motion was to close the public hearing.
Close the public
Okay,
hearing.
yeah,
Okay, now
all
we
for
have-
it.
All right, so we close the public hearing. Now we have to vote. Does I'll entertain a motion to approve the firearms bylaw as presented to us and send it to the selectmen for special town meeting.
So moved.
Second? Violet, you want to second that one?
Sure, second.
All right, all those in favor, Jeff,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes,
Elisa?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And Maren, you have a letter already presented, ready to send to the selectmen tomorrow morning to say that we've had public hearings, we've approved this bylaw, and we want it on, sent to vote for the voters as quickly as possible, February 7th being the proposed date for a special town meeting. Correct? And she's mute, but just go like this. Yes. All right. I think we're done. You guys did
So
yeoman's
then
work.
the other piece is I will draft a planning board report to town meeting. And I take it from your prior votes that you vote to recommend town meeting floor.
We do. We good? I want to thank both of you for doing yeoman's work to get this done in such a short time and as elaborate as it is. I know you guys stole a lot of it from other people, but you did a great job stealing. And obviously we'll need your help at town meeting, but thank you. I think a lot of residents of town are grateful for what not only you guys did and what the planning board did, and we'll see you probably in the middle of early February. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah,
Thank you.
we appreciate the kind words, and I'll just say that this is 99% Marisa and 1% Tom.
I'm giving you
Has
credit. I
come
know,
as no surprise to anyone.
I know Marisa did most of the work. I know.
You're too kind, Tom.
Did
Thank
a
you,
great
Mark,
job.
and
And
everyone.
thank you for being receptive to the little tweaks that we all sent to you and everything else like that. Thank you for listening to what we had, us and the residents had to say.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Happy
Good night.
holidays, by the
Night.
way.
You too.
Thank you. You too.
All right, so where am I now? I'm a little late, right? I have a 7:15 public hearing for, not that late, for Dish Wireless on 59 Porter Road. Guys want a little history? This is the very first cell tower site that Sprint proposed to us. Oh, back when I had black hair. How long was that, Warren? 40 years ago, something like that. 35 years ago, whatever. This was the first cell tower site in Littleton. Now Dish is proposing to co-locate on it. Is that what this is for? Katie, welcome.
Yeah, so Mark, thanks for teeing that up. We'll remind the board that with the changes in FCC, Jobs Act of a handful of years ago, the planning board has the opportunity to review the special permit application, but you are left with approve with conditions or approve with no conditions based on the updated federal laws.
Maren, do we need to read the public hearing notice?
No,
This is
thank
the
you.
first time. Thank you.
Thank you. I will get there momentarily.
Hurry up, Jeff's falling asleep.
That's my bedtime.
Okay. Unless the board waives the reading of the notice. Yes. Let me try that one. Okay, there it is. The Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 7:15 PM in room 103 of the Shattuck Street Town Hall, 37 Shattuck Street, to consider the application for a special permit pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, and the Code of Town of Littleton zoning, wireless telecommunications tower and facilities, sections 173, 128 through 173, 133. Property location 59 Porter Road, map R12, parcel 4. Property owner, Spound Development Associates, applicant Crown Castle for Dish Wireless. The applicant is seeking a special permit to co-locate on the existing cell tower and undertake associated site improvements at 59 Porter Road. Application and plans can be viewed at the planning board and town clerk's office during their business hours or at www.littletonma.org. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed plan should appear at the public hearing. Comments by December 5th, if possible, to my email address. Any questions, please call 978-540-2425 and signed by Bartlett Harvey, clerk.
Great. Katie, you want to give us the Reader's Digest version of what you're proposing out there?
Yeah, thanks for having me and for putting this on Zoom since we're also dealing with some COVID in my house. So Dish is proposing to install 3 antennas on the existing cell tower, and they're going below all of the other existing equipment that's already there on the tower. Their center line for installation is going to be 83 feet. Just to give a quick overview of how Dish came into the world of wireless. A few years ago, T-Mobile and Sprint merged, but in order to do so, government agencies, FCC, said, hey, there need to be 4 major carriers for consumers to choose from, try to avoid one carrier monopolizing everything. And so T-Mobile gave Dish these frequency bands and said, okay, we got a 4th major player. They're going to build their network out. We're going to buy Sprint. And that's what we're doing now. We're building out the Dish network. So Dish's footprint for what they're proposing on all towers and different wireless communication facilities in the States is a lot smaller than what is already there, what the other carriers are using. They're only want to install 3 antennas, and they're going to be pretty close mounted to the tower. They're not going to stick out very far. They're going to be running 1 hybrid cable and 1 fiber cable up the tower. So they're not going to be any like big coax. There's a lot of these carriers use really thick coax cables. These are just 2 little skinny cables. And then their footprints in the ground what they need is a 5-foot by 7-foot leased area. And it's going to have a steel platform that just sets on the ground, and on top of that platform it'll have their cabinet. There's not going to be any digging or pouring of cement for it or anything like that. The only other thing on this particular tower, I know that they have to move the fence out a little bit in order to fit their platform down, which is on the plans. If you had a chance to review, that is on the plans on page. Let's see. My computer doesn't want to cooperate with me.
It's on sheet A1.
Thank you. Yeah, so the fence expansion is, there's like look at the photo that's on the front of on the first page of the CDs. There's like it's almost like the fence kind of goes it goes in one corner instead of going just straight out to create like a square shape. So they're just looking to push it out to make that square shape with the fence and sit their equipment right there.
So just so that everyone knows, the fence is behind the building up to the highway. So there's really no residential component. There's no other commercial there. It's, you don't even know it's there. So,
Well, but it's behind the building.
yeah, it's behind the building, but butting up to the highway. The highway's right behind it. So that's the first one. That's that's what started it all right there. Yep. So yeah. So you can see there's plenty of antennas already. See the highway right behind it. It's right, literally, it's right there between the building and the highway. There's nothing, you can't even get to it. There's a access. Let me see. What is this? Is this 30 years old, Mine, do you think? Anyway, it was the first one, and it's like tucked behind the building, right next to the highway. They're going to use small little tray, the little 5x5 aluminum boxes. You don't need. Do you need electricity? You have redundancy for your electricity there. Is it a small little generator inside the building as well?
We're going to be running electrical. I don't think Dish hasn't been using generators for the most part.
The battery backup.
Yeah, they'll be. From what I understand, all of their equipment is going to be battery backup. Let's just make sure I'm not missing anything here. Yeah, power conduit, telco conduit, telco fiber box, safety switch. Yeah, there's no, they typically don't want to put down generators. They have such a small, a small amount of equipment.
Well, now with the battery technology that we didn't have.
Yeah, it's just as good.
Nobody's right. Does the board have any questions? I mean, it's pretty basic. The old days, we used to do big fancy maps and do the coverage of what this is going to add. No, we don't do that anymore. We just, yep, okay, it looks good.
I have a history question, Mark. So this was put in before we did the bylaw that required them to be located on.
No, this is, well, yeah, this was one of the first ones, and I'm pretty sure we had the bylaw in place when this came in, but this was one of the ones that was allowed within 500 feet of the highway. That's how it got in. It's on private. It's one of the first. It is the first private. It's one of the few privates in the town of Littleton. But yeah, it was part of the bylaw. It was the first one. Yeah.
So I have no problem with this because I know on the Board of Appeals we would occasionally have to look at these because they were extending the height.
Yeah, and this is 80 feet, which is below the 100.
There's no,
Yeah. Just an aside, I think this is the one we denied at first, and then we ended up settling. I think they wanted it higher. Isn't this the one we got sued? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No, that was the Newtown Hill.
Oh, all right. Geez, I thought it was this one.
I was like, I don't think so. I hope not, because I wasn't made aware
I'm
of
talking
that.
I'm talking 30 years ago. You're right. It wasn't done because of that. Yeah. And the funny thing, when they came in to present, like I said, Sprint did this. It was the first one that ever came in. They told us that once we're up and running with this, that you're going to forget about the phone in your house. We all looked at them like they had rocks in their head. There is no way you're going to get rid of your house phone. No way. This is a passing fad. This isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I wish
I
I'd.
remember in line at town meeting to vote on this, on that bylaw, that people were all upset because we were all going to get cancer from
Oh, yeah, that was.
ear
the other
cancer
thing,
from
yeah.
our phones.
Yeah,
and-
there were gonna be 1 million cell towers everywhere. Oh, yeah, remember the hysteria? Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
um,
there's still a little bit of that going around.
yeah, no, it's
But-
we have the little antennas they're starting to put up everywhere too. So anyway,
Yeah.
before Bartlett falls asleep, do anyone have any questions? My trip down memory lane is over. Anyone, if no one has any questions, I'll entertain a motion to.
I have a question.
For
Don't give
me
me
or
that.
her? For me or her?
So the bylaw says that we are supposed to grant the permit for 5 years. So I didn't see anything in the decision about that.
Yeah, that has pretty much been overridden by federal law.
Okay, so that there's no expiration date on it.
Yeah.
Correct.
We used to we put it in there so we could get more money every 5 years. They'd come in and renew it, and we get another fee and all of that stuff. In the old days, all the money went to conservation and everything else like that, open space. We got millions of dollars for open space back in the day. Now the feds have ruined our little gravy train. We can't do all of that stuff anymore. So
Maren, would this be an example of the type of thing in your capital projects, you wanted this bylaw review? Is this the type of thing that would be, swept up in that?
Hopefully, yeah, it should be highlighted in that with some recommendations on how to update it.
Okay.
Yes.
one last trip down memory lane so that you guys understand what happened 30 years ago, way before half of you guys weren't even born 30 years ago. When we wrote the bylaw, everybody thought we had rocks on our head, that it wasn't going to pass. They called it Littleton's chicken coop, municipal chicken coop, I think is the word they use, because our bylaws basically pushed most of the cell towers to municipally owned properties, water towers and stuff like that, because we got the revenue from it. And this is one of the few that's on a privately owned. But no one in the state thought this was going to pass. It's worked out great. And we've got
smart move.
What?
It was a very smart move.
Yeah, we've got millions of dollars for open space wrapped in this bylaw because the planning board 30 years ago saw this coming down the pike and did everything we could to control where it went. And it's worked out great, actually.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done self-promoting. I'm done. Can I take a vote on this?
One final question, speaking of private property owners. So page 2 of the application doesn't have a signature from the property owner. So Katie, is that something that you can provide?
I think I sent over a letter of authorization.
Okay.
1 second. Just open up my full application. And if I didn't, yeah, I can absolutely provide that.
Terrific.
Yes, you did send the letter of authorization from Spound to
Okay, awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
That was part of
Okay.
it. So that's great. Mark, let's vote on this puppy.
All right, let's close the hearing. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Who wants to make that motion? Bartlett, you want to? All right, but I hear Bartlett made he muted the motion to close the hearing. Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing for Dish Networks signify by saying aye.
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 All right, I'll make a motion to approve the application for Dish Network to co-locate, which is in our bylaw. We promote co-location to the Porter Road site, formerly known as Sprint. I don't even know what it's called these days, but anyway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll start with you, Hannah.
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Delisa,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Great.
Good luck and welcome to Littleton.
Thank you very much. When can I expect a written decision? That's the first thing Crown's going to ask me in the morning. So
Yep, I have 14 days to file the decision with town clerk. I'll send it out as soon as I get that.
great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, 7:15, our last on 7:35. Informal discussion, extension of King Street Common Zoning District. I see Rick Freiberg is hiding in the bushes somewhere.
Yeah, he's on his way in.
I see the big R, yes. Anyway,
All right. Can you hear me okay?
yep,
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. So what we're proposing to do with this warrant article is to continue the hard work that we've all made on the King Street Common zoning district and provide more consistency of the zoning across the street on the other side of Great Road. I believe each of you has the articles in your packet, but on the bottom of the sheet, you'll see the yellow area, which is the current King Street, 550 King Street parcel. The green parcels that are shown there are the ones that we're proposing to extend the zoning. I see it coming up on the screen now. And so basically what we want to do is carry forward all of the rules from the King Street Common zoning district onto these other parcels with a few exceptions. And those are the bullets that are in the middle. And really these exceptions have to do with development of smaller parcels. Obviously, when we wrote King Street Common zoning district, it was for the larger IBM parcel. This will help us extend the consistency, but also onto smaller parcels. And so what we're proposing to do is make 3 modifications for the new parcel that would apply to the new green parcels. One would be to allow for the master plan approval of projects larger than 4 acres. 5 is currently the minimum based on the existing King Street Common zoning bylaw. This allows us to include specifically 410 Great Road into that King Street Common master planning option. The second is to allow increased density on the sites as long as the planning board feels that it's appropriate and as long as it can meet the parking requirements that are set forth in the form-based code. And the third exception talks about stepping of buildings. You remember we spent a lot of time talking about building heights along King Street as part of the King Street Common zoning district. This has a similar flair to it, except that along Great Road, obviously we want to step the building, but we want to step it up sooner than 100 feet from Great Road, which is how the current King Street Common zoning district lays it out. This proposes to reduce that stepping distance from 100 feet to 40 feet. And that's essentially what this proposed zoning extension is for. I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
so this is the first piece, the parcel is the old Chinese restaurant, correct? You now own the
Yep.
Chinese restaurant as well, so that's what you want to include that into the King Street Common area. And
Yep,
the second
exactly.
is the 410, the old mill building. You want to include that as you develop. You want to be able to go right across the whole front of the property.
That's right, and just trying to have some consistency. There's we talked a lot when we were talking about 410 Great Road about how it's really an extension of and a phase of the 550 King Street project. This just sort of ties the 2 processes together a little tighter.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Rick, on the 410, what if the parcel changes shape?
Oh, so the way we have the proposed ordinance written is it's identified by the parcel number, the map and lot number. So I think as long as we for example, if there was a lot line adjustment, you mean?
Yes.
Yep, that would modify the shape of the property. So I think as long as we retained the map
Oh,
and lot
you
numbers.
retain the parcel designation. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would buy that.
Rick, this is Anna.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions. Hi. So by having the same bylaw in these 2 green areas, does that mean that the form-based code would go back 240 feet as it does over on the existing King Street Common?
So I think what we would do is so for parcels that are west of Great Road, which are the smaller parcels that includes 410 and a couple of surrounding parcels.
Right.
I think what we would do is we would use the 40-foot designation for the form-based code, and then beyond that would divert back to the King Street Common. You remember the distance of 255 feet.
That's what it is, yes.
Yep, from King Street. It was a designation of 100 feet from Great Road on King Street Common. This
Yeah.
proposes for parcels that are west of Great Road, that would be reduced from 100 feet down to 40 feet.
Okay, all right, so
Yep.
that's what I was wondering about, okay.
Yep.
And then I was just curious, lot 24 seems to be surrounded by green. So
Yeah.
does that mean that one would remain as is?
That's correct. Yeah, that's the gas station parcel. And the King Street Common zoning bylaw is not particularly friendly towards automobile service uses or industrial type uses. And we just didn't want to inadvertently include a parcel that really has no interest in being included.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Elisa, do you have any questions or concerns? Nope.
I think it's straightforward.
Okay. All right. Maren, what's our next step with this one?
Next step is a question of timing. Select Board has scheduled the special town meeting for February 2nd. If the board is looking to move forward with this zoning bylaw amendment, I would recommend that you vote to schedule a public hearing. You could do that public hearing on January 5th and if you have a recommendation shortly after that, you could make the February 7th special town meeting.
So can we ask the select board to hold us a spot and hold a public hearing in January?
Yes.
Does the board have any problems with doing that? No, I'm seeing nobody shaking their head. So why don't we plan doing that? We'll have you come in formally on January 5th.
I would ask you to vote on scheduling the public hearing on this zoning bylaw amendment for January 5th.
Okay, all right. Don't be technical on me. Jesus. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to put this on the agenda for the January meeting. Someone want to make that motion? Nope, no.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. You happy now, Maren?
Thank you.
All right. Good. I'm gonna keep in compliance and,
Mhm.
All right. So Rick, we'll have this on for the first week of June. We'll see your smiley little face the first week of January.
I'm looking forward to it. Sorry I have my camera off. I'm actually in the car because I was over at LELWD for a meeting earlier. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I'll see you January 5th. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Maren, we'll send a letter to the selectmen asking them to hold a spot for us for this public hearing on
Yes, I will.
it. Okay.
I have a question, Maren. I'm confused about the February meeting. Is it, or the town meeting? Is it the number 2 or the number 7?
The special town meeting on February 7th,
7th, okay.
So,
which it's a Tuesday night. So
okay. Anything else? I think we're done. Got everything done.
we have the request from Northern Bank to continue the public hearing for, as you noted earlier, for their redevelopment.
Do we have a time?
What I've been doing is putting this one last, as Jeff's not sitting on this one.
Okay.
I would suggest 8 p.m.
Okay. On the 5th.
January 5th, yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Board have anything else before we adjourn?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being so accommodating and flexible in moving this meeting from the 7th to the 14th.
Oh. You know what? This action was actually pretty easy, Then, yeah. Anyway, thank you all, and I hope we all have good holidays.
You too.
And we'll see you unless something else. Let's have a special meeting for something else. If I screwed something up, I'll let you know.
I won't be there.
Hopefully we're good till January 7th.
Yeah, and actually the meeting on January 5th is scheduled to be a Zoom meeting. as
Fifth,
well.
I mean.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So the public hearing notice, the new hearing notice will reflect a Zoom.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All
Let's have
right.
Zooms during the
Okay.
cold weather, so we don't have to go outside.
That's it, yes.
Anyway, thank you all. Happy holidays.
Okay, happy
You too.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And I thank you, Myron. Wonderful job